Kyodo News English World
皆さんこんにちは。こちらは共同通信英文記者のポッドキャストです。英文記者は国内外で起きている出来事について取材してオリジナル英文記事を発信したり、日本語のニュースを英語に翻訳したりしています。共同通信の英語の記事をテーマにいろんな国から集まる仲間たちと英語と日本語を交えていろいろディスカッションしてきたらと思っています。今日は3人の記者でお届けします。Hi there everyone, my name is Eduardo Martinez. I've been a reporter here at Kyodo News for over 3.5 years now. I'm originally from Brisbane, Australia. It's very nice to meet you all.
皆さんこんにちは。堀内純子と申します。2009年に共同通信社に入社しました。2年ほど松江支局で日本語の記者もしていました。よろしくお願いします。
Hi there, my name is Peter Mashta. I'm a staff writer at Kyodo News and I'm from London. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys. So we have a bit of a heavier topic here today, but one I found very fascinating and timely because it's recently been the 80th anniversary of Japan surrendering in World War II. Peter, this is a feature article that you wrote. Would you please read the title for us?
Sure. 80 years on, former World War II pilot relives kamikaze call that never came.
Thank you. And could you read the first few paragraphs for us?
Sure. In the 80 years since Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender, bringing World War II to an end, Tatsukuma Ueno and his fellow pilots would reflect on how military leadership and youthful zeal nearly sent them on missions with no return. In August 1945, Ueno was a 17-year-old army pilot at WWII airfield in southwestern Japan's Fukuoka prefecture. There, he awaited the go-ahead for an attack he was unlikely to survive after being passed over for kamikaze suicide missions. But while others heard the Emperor's broadcast in the early afternoon sun of August 15th, Corporal Ueno was told that evening as he recovered from life-threatening malaria. My mind was completely blank, the 97-year-old said in a recent interview in Niza, Saitama Prefecture, near his home. I had intended to die, and suddenly, instead, I was going to live. I didn't even think to consider if it had been better to be alive or dead. I was just stunned.
Thank you very much, Peter. So that's the beginning of a very interesting article there. So first of all, how did you come across Ueno-san?
So Ueno-san came to our attention when he was at a press conference at the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan in, I believe, early July. And I felt that the press conference wasn't quite getting to the center of the story. So one of the editors here asked me if I would be willing to get in touch with him to do a piece about people who had experienced the war and who might have some connection to special attack units, or kamikaze as they're known in the English-speaking world. So we got in touch with him. He was willing to do the interview. And yeah.
So with your understanding of what kamikaze were and your knowledge of World War II history, what was your experience like talking to someone who had lived it?
Well, I think special attack units, or kamikaze, are a particularly sensitive historical subject. We're referring to, as I'm sure most listeners are aware, the Japanese Imperial military decided to pursue a tactic in which they would get young men to pilot aircraft and some watercraft laden with explosives to smash into and explode against Allied craft. I wanted to write an article that respected his experiences while also noting that kamikaze as a policy was one where people were essentially forced.
Right. So myself being Australian, growing up and hearing stories from the Australian perspective on World War II, this demonstrating a willingness to die for your country isn't a rhetoric that was unique to Japan. I mean, Australian soldiers and other Allied forces would say similar things, but I guess yes, the key difference is that this was such a deliberately orchestrated strategy by Japan to have people go on these suicide missions.
The one other thing I would say is that if you reading the story, of course, Ueno-san was never actually a kamikaze pilot.
Right.
So that's quite an important element that I have to draw a line under now.
Mm-hmm.
So he was 17 years old when the war ended, and in February 1945, after he had completed certain maneuvers involving aircraft descending very quickly, he was asked, along with his other trainees, whether he would be willing to be part of one of these special attack kamikaze units.
Right. So yeah, reading the article, was that training? It seems as though it was conducted with the pretext that they would be eventually asked to be kamikaze, or was that genuinely not the case?
I don't think it's guaranteed that he would have been a kamikaze pilot, but I certainly think that the training that took place made it possible for him to be one.
Right. I don't think either any of us here have experienced a war before, and hopefully we won't have to. But as this was during the final stages of World War II, when Japan was in a very desperate situation. So one really can't imagine the kind of decisions they would make in that unless they were experiencing that for themselves.
そうですよね。特攻隊の希望調査では熱望するって書いて、もう死ぬ気で待ってたと思うんですけど、結局そういうことにならなくて、そういう時にどう思ったんだろうって思いますよね。
Because other boys who were the same age as him, they were chosen and sent off. And later in life, especially in the last 10 years, he said to me he's been more vocal about his experiences. I think because Ueno-san never saw combat, he was always training, or he was at one point a junior instructor teaching other pilots, and then he was also transporting planes for kamikaze use at one point as well. I think he may have felt that his story didn't need to be told, but that in later years he came around to the idea of doing that.
Yeah, I think it's a very incredibly rare opportunity to be able to speak to someone who was 97 years old at the time of writing, to have them relay that story. And the footage of him speaking as well, he appears to be very lucid,
totally.
and recalling things with great ease, so it is quite remarkable.
特に神風の特攻隊っていう特別な任務に携わってた経験というのは本当に貴重だなと思いました。
It's very sensitive as well because Ueno-san grew up in occupied China from the age of 7 to 15,
right.
And he trained in occupied Korea. So his history of the war, although it's not said explicitly in the article, is also touching on the history of Japanese colonialism and a lot of negative sentiment toward Japan and its military past, which continues today in those countries. So I think when it comes to writing a story about the atomic bombing and people whose lives were changed irrevocably by that, it's possible to focus on that element, and especially because the atomic bomb, unlike any weapon before it, was affecting people's lives for decades
was
afterwards.
So devastating.
Yeah. But when it comes to talking about somebody who was a participant in the war, you inevitably come against the really complicated question of how Japan looks back at its own history. Is incredibly interesting and a very rare opportunity for us to be able to hear about. I don't think Ueno-san will hear this podcast, but I would like to say thank you to him again here now for speaking to us.
そろそろ終わりの時間になりました。共同通信では WWII by Kyodo News というサイトで日本や世界で起きた出来事について英語のニュースを発信しています。今日ご紹介した記事も掲載されていますので、ぜひチェックしてみてください。それでは皆さん、
See you next time!